Hey folks, welcome back to Game Guides where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. Today we're talking about Crimson Desert, which was just initial impressions. We're going to go over a little bit of the game. We're not going to have any spoilers. Also, anything that you're seeing on the screen, if there's extra pixelation there, that's actually on me, not necessarily on the game. But we're going to talk about performance as well. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the mechanics. But again, we're not going to try to do any spoilers whatsoever because I want people to experience it for themselves because there are some definite shocking bits. And probably the biggest shocking thing for the game is actual scope. So we think that we're in a medieval setting, and it's an open world sandbox, right? So we expect to have some combat, maybe some upgrading, and having to deal with maybe food or stamina or something. There's some things that we would expect with that type of a game. Having played Oblivion or Skyrim or like Ghost Recon Wildlands or something like that with other type of open world sandboxes. And the wonderful thing is that the scope is way bigger in the game than we think it is. It's way bigger. So, like, even just the map itself, with the sheer scale and size of it, it's unbelievably massive. And the other thing is that there's a whole nother map that isn't as big, but very important to the game. And so we don't see that until like probably somewhere between an hour and 2 hours in. And I know that not everyone that has played it so far or is going to maybe play a demo or something is even going to maybe get to that part because there are going to be so many things to do and explore just on the ground itself. But if you focus on the main quest, you'll be able to do that. And I think the scope is wonderful, not just for the sheer game size, but for the lore and the characters and your abilities and skills and all of that. I think that all kind of plays together into really making a grand scale way beyond than what we thought the game would be. So, if for nothing else, the game is definitely worth it for that. Because anything that has really come out in the last 6 years, except for maybe Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring, there really isn't very much that can be on this level of scale. Maybe Starfield 2 would be a part of that, and maybe some other games. But this Crimson Desert is really next level. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some problems. So, PC players are still having a struggle actually getting the game to not be locked or encrypted, and they still can't play the game, even though that it has officially launched. They legally own the game, and PC players still are, at least some of them, are not actually able to play it. So far, from what I've heard from PlayStation and from Xbox, we were just having to wait for the actual launch date of 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. But the up or the download day one patch is unbelievably huge. So we have 39.5 gigs on the console disc itself, which is nice, at least for the Xbox version. So I think that's all kind of like the lower grade textures and all of that kind of stuff. But then if you want the 4K and the ray tracing or whatever else is implemented in the game, which there is a lot of that, there's another 121 gig update that you have to have if you want to play the game. So yeah, the game is incredibly large, and it's not going to fit all on one disc anyway. But yeah, the game is huge. So yeah, it's a big file size, and two, like there's performance issues in the game as well. So there is a difference between performance, balance, and quality mode, and there definitely is a difference between performance and quality. But still, there's kind of like this blurriness. Now, there is a setting that you can work on turning off, which is exactly what I did. I turn off all filters and blurriness and whatever to try to get as clear of an image as I possibly can. But between performance and quality, there definitely is a massive drop in actual frame rate. So even though my TV with VRR on is telling me that I'm still getting somewhere between 100 and 120 frames, I'm definitely not experiencing that in the game. So there's a lot of processing, there's a lot of rendering going on, And you can really tell, especially with water and with some other stuff. And even though the game looks like it's in Unreal Engine 5, it's not. It's through the Black Space engine. But it has some of the same issues as Unreal Engine 5, like with ghosting or kind of blurriness, or like the water doesn't quite right, like on a waterfall. And you'll see that if you actually play the game. And I'll try to add some of this too with what you're seeing on screen. But the combat is more varied than I thought it would be. We have our weapons, we have our skill trees, we have different abilities and things that we can do and utilize during combat, which is really nice. There's also like finisher moves and all of that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. We we also have variations of arrows. We also have variations of, again, not just skills but also abilities throughout the game, which is pretty cool. And so that kind of really opens up combat a little bit more than we think we would. There's also recipes for cooking, there's also crafting, and there's also smithing as well. Now, so far, the smithing that I've experienced is that you actually go to somebody and they upgrade it for you, but that also takes materials and also kind of like an upgrading process like we would expect from like Far Cry, for example. There's also hunting in the game, which is nice so that you can get different types of hides and skins and also meat and stuff like that. And there is a very wide range of different animals in the game, all used for different stuff, including alchemy in the game, which I did not necessarily expect that one, but that's definitely there. And while I haven't necessarily dived into it yet, I definitely think it's a very big part of the game, or can be if you wish to play that way. Something, too, that I did not expect is actually harvesting trees. Uh, I had one mission where I was helping somebody and they needed wood, so I went to a tree in the world and I actually had a chopping axe, cut the tree down, trimmed it down into a log or multiple logs, and then I broke up those logs for actual materials that can be used in the game. There's also an entire economy of being able to buy and sell and different types of pretty much anything that you can get your hands on. And of course, some of the stuff you can steal. So again, be careful. But if you're kind of thinking or wanting like another game like uh, Oblivion or Skyrim, I think this would be a really great kind of alternative to that. And even in some capacities, the game is bigger. So you don't necessarily have like spells and whatnot. At least I haven't encountered that myself. But we do know that there's different ways to travel in the game. Right now I have a horse, but there are other ways besides a horse and walking, which is cool. And yeah, the game really is going to expand and explode. And the world too is also going to it's already exploding just within the first couple of hours, and there is a ton there that's potential in the game. But the thing that I do appreciate with the world building that they're doing is that conflict is coming, and there's already sub conflict between different factions and houses, that have their own manors and castles and stuff. So there's already some conflict that can be there, and there's your occasional bandit or whatever. But there's also a whole nother overall arching theme that I think plays and ties fairly closely um, to Oblivion. So we'll see exactly how closely tied it is, but it's kind of on that track with the Oblivion story, which is cool. So um, the world is exciting. It is engaging, but the game too is blurry. Kind of feels blurry. There's ghosting with different stuff, especially with shadows. Anything bright in a shadowy area, and vice versa. You can definitely see that ghosting and the contrast, which makes you think of Unreal Engine 5, but that's not necessarily the case. But so far, with my first impressions, um, it's a 7. And the reason, yeah, 7.5, and the reason I say that is because it is above average, and the scope definitely helps bring the score up. But with people on PC having that issue of just trying to actually play the game that they paid for, and then the de novo is also another problem that people are not excited about. And then it's excuse me, it's still a $70 game, and then the game kind of looks blurry and ghosty, especially during certain scenarios. But we have a day-night cycle. We have weather that does change and affect some stuff too. We also have to worry about getting too hot or too cold, and that affecting our stamina and like exhaustion levels and stuff. So yeah, the game has more scope than we think it does initially. And if you're kind of interested in that kind of Subnautica environment in an Oblivion world with some of the Oblivion and Skyrimness mixed in there, I think you'll enjoy the game. I certainly do. I'm going to have a blast. I hope they continue to improve it and update it. But yeah, the scope is just way bigger and has me even more excited than I already was. So that's my 2 cents. But again, if people aren't overly excited about having to chop wood or about having to maybe gather some resources or doing some fetch quests, which we would all expect from an open world RPG, um, then yeah, that's kind of an issue. But there is also a trust system in the game. How you treat people does matter and have consequences, big and small, going forward, and also the houses and different factions in the game. Um, that's all going to kind of play its part. So I also wonder if there's maybe different kind of endings to the game as well. I don't know. Very interesting, but yeah, this their Pearl Abyss's first single player game, and boy is it quite ambitious. I think it's hard to see that in the first hour or several hours, depending on how you play. But yeah, if you just focus on that primary main mission, main focus, you're going to see the scope and how big it is pretty quickly. The game's really going to explode in scope very, very quickly. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks for tuning in, guys. You can always follow me at GameGarbage22. Various content every week. If something's not for you, don't worry about it. Just skip on through and wait for the next thing. You can also follow me over at Twitch if you'd like. It Don't Tread on Thee. And yeah, when I'm playing, I'll probably be streaming it, and I'll take whatever questions you have. Or if you just want to be a silent partner, hey, that's okay too. And but yeah, Crimson Desert is definitely going to be a game that I'm going to be playing for a while until we get to some of the others that I'm excited for. So yeah, I better get busy. So with that, folks, and if you've played it, what are you excited about? What are you not excited about for the game? Go ahead and share that as part of the discussion in the comments. But just be careful with spoilers if you can. And yeah, be a part of the discussion. So thanks, guys. I'll see you guys on the next one.
You feeling confident? Come on, put your back into it.
The frick was that? Mother bear, dude. Come on, come on.
Oh, shit.
Nice.
That was a good match.
It's kind of a fun game.
Blazes, you're as strong as you look.